In the eyes of the public, Halloween 1978 would be regarded as the undisputable Halloween film, a respect most of the others wouldn't hold. But when compared to a direct remake, what are the considerable differences, good and bad? The fight of the late 90s, the early 2000s, Rob Zombie, Man of the Night, or filmmaker at law, John Carpenter. A hidden evil, the visible darkness brewing in a child about to snap. A direct comparison would be hard to articulate. Both films serve different generations, a different audience, and they tackle independently with the respected complexities. But that isn't to say a comparison can't be drawn. Let's just attempt to go about it appropriately. Evil is evil regardless of size or amount or force or resilience or intelligence and understanding. There isn't a right or wrong answer of whether or not either Michael had possessed more or less of the fundamental traits of a normal person. But what remains obvious is the only commonality of Carpenter and Zombies was their disdain for the franchise. A good film to make, but a bad franchise to be stuck to. The difference is, our beloved remake this time around wasn't a passion project with your friends as much as it was a job from the angry and distasteful Weinsteins.
When Bob watched the movie, when it was done, this is how he calls me and goes, I hate every single fucking frame of this movie.
That's your call?
Really?
Yeah,
No.
That's like a note. I hate you have to fire your editor. He's a fucking idiot, isn't know what he's fucking doing. I hate this. Maybe
You're not exaggerating.
Oh no, I'm not exaggerating at all. This is what it was like every single day.
And to call shots, with the ammunition being your salary on stake, you aren't going to approach your work from the creative standpoint you've always been working off of. And we can argue if this is grounds for some sort of creative standstill, but the answer remains the same. It is. Our two sides are highly chaotic, as not only did Carpenter not care for Zombie's Halloween film, Zombie didn't care in any way what Carpenter thought of his film. And this officially marks our part in this story of understanding that both projects couldn't be connected in any way outside of copyright grounds, sharing the same names and the same characters. So with this, we can recognize and analyze contrasting objectives.
Goddamn glasses. Jesus, I'm gonna be late.
Your head.
Oh, shit, I'm gonna lose my mind.
My mind too is bordering being lost. But I'm gonna piece together all that I can because we are about to objectively approach the subject. There isn't a wrong way to make a Halloween film, even if we consider that we are deserving of XYZ outcome or XYZ approach to tying together a well-coordinated story. All directors hold all the rights to an interpersonal story laid out with their best ideas and their best imaginative endings. All we can do is analyze and decide how it best relates to our expectations.
Boyfriend, come on! This is my brother! Coldplay, Dashboard Confessional, Dead Tapper Cutie, Eminem, Everclear, Foo Fighters, The Game.
It's easy to say you can't beat an original and leave things there, but it's far more interesting to know why you liked one more than the other. Let's start with Laurie Strode. Scout Taylor-Compton was cast to play a more eruptive Laurie Strode, and by the end of the Rob Zombie series, fully subverted that tact and innocence. Rob Zombie's perception of how trauma affected this character leads her into a darker place than we've seen in the previous films. Lots of vulgar language, substances, it's unapologetically raw.
I'm Angel Myers. Michael Myers' sister.
Alright, dude, even I wouldn't fucking touch that joke.
MovieWeb.com.
It seemed a bit, with this new Michael Myers, it didn't seem like she would be able to stop him with a coat hanger.
I personally believe it captured the essence of PTSD in a young patient and brought a fresh approach that otherwise we totally haven't seen before. But, of course, it was all in the style of the director. By the end of the remake, Laurie Strode finally takes action, quite opposite of what we would have seen with the 1970s counterpart. After being pushed out the window by Michael, Laurie gets on top of Michael, tries to shoot but the gun jams. She tries again, jammed. Again, jammed. Michael awakens. And bang. I think Scout's portrayal ticks many of the boxes of a good protagonist, relatability and growth throughout the story. Laurie Strode, portrayed by Jamie Lee Curtis, arguably had more class and innocence. Perhaps it was more common with it being the late 70s, or it was just the way John Carpenter intended. In the words of John Carpenter, Laurie was different from the other kids. She was shy, didn't fit in, but she wanted to be popular. The same wouldn't be said about Rob Zombie's remake. The original Laurie Strode fought crossing the lines between being bold and being safe. Everything felt like a risk. The approximate time was the first quarter of 1978, when in the offices of a Cahuenga Boulevard building, Jamie Lee Curtis auditioned for the role of Laurie Strode in an upcoming horror film titled The Babysitter Murders. John Carpenter recounted seeing an undeniable quality in this young actress, and he knew she would be the person to fill out the shoes of what would become horror's most infamous final girl. The original Laurie Strode was found to be a lot more restrained, held back in what feels like setting any type of boundary. But I'm with the belief ultimately, both the original and the remake allowed for Laurie to grow, but the remake seemed to approach it quite differently, coming off at times very visceral. Production officially began on January 29, 2007, and while I can't officially date when location scouting began, I would imagine a handful of months prior during pre-production. But between the original to the remake, there are nods to the roots. If you've ever noticed why the scene with Laurie spotting Michael outside the classroom in Rob Zombie's iteration looks so familiar, that's because it was actually Laurie Strode's house in the original film that Michael is standing in front of. The shot of Laurie carrying the pumpkin out in 1978 shows as the structure of the house remains quite similar. So it has this kind of juxtaposed in some sort of non-traditional sense because it ties together the new Laurie and Michael with the past Laurie and Michael in a way that hardcore Halloween fans really appreciate.
Down here is where the original Strode house was, which we're actually going to cheat a POV of Michael staring at Laurie when she looks out the high school library.
But it's supposed to be the interior of a library that we're going to shoot at the elementary school with the smelly bathroom.
How many people can it support at once?
I just go with 3.
Do you want to go with, and is it on sticks or handheld?
It's a zoom up there.
Got it.
It's too nice that it's windy too.
Jack cleaning it up, BJ?
Anyway, I thought Paul was like grounded for trashing his dad's motorcycle.
Oh yeah, no he was, but he got out of it.
In Rob Zombie's head, he was with the belief that to make this his own film, must let go of all common elements of a remake. Hold off on bringing back cast for cameos. You can change the style of shooting, writing, you can tweak the characters, hopefully to fit around your ideas and not be locked down to what's commonly understood through the history of the Halloween franchise.
I was just really mean to this kid.
Did you hear it?
He hit hard. He hit the cement pretty hard.
You okay?
A great quote that quite fairly captures this sentiment. To make a film is easy. To make a good film is war. But to make a very good film is a miracle. I haven't felt this love or excitement or intrigue through all of the ways I immerse myself into this franchise until recently when I watched the 2007 Halloween's 4-hour making of documentary, and how it showed production in its whole, from set designs to changing designs, from set changes to seeing the cogs turn in Rob Zombie's head, actively observing each shot's layout. It felt very beautiful. John Carpenter is the master, and he is the staple of effective guerrilla filmmaking, and I believe John Carpenter used what he had to make for Halloween, and it turned out beautiful, but in the same right, Rob Zombie crafted everything he hadn't. And the process of seeing it as someone who studied film production and who has directed their own personal film, I loved every second of seeing the way Rob Zombie left his space of re-portraying a story and reimagined the sides of it that we never had seen before.
Mate you with a female gorilla.
Did you pick your feet up, numbnut?
Hey.
Tired of hearing that shit. Surprised we got him upright, knuckle dragger.
One of the starkest contrasts of these two flicks has to be the way it turned Loomis from this nice old man into this evil, self-absorbed asshole. But in the ending of Halloween 2, they allowed for Loomis to die the hero, putting his life on the line. It was a beautiful switch of hero to wannabe anti-hero.
This is breaking news.
This is Chopper 2. I want to take you below. The situation is just incredible. I can't believe what I'm reporting, but a man who police believe to be deceased serial killer Michael Myers being identified as Laurie Strode.
And what follows was this realization that Sheriff Brackett lost not only Laurie but his daughter Annie.
Oh no, Annie! Hey, God, no! God, please! Oh, God! No! No!
It's the way this film puts the reality into the character and loss, and it felt like an infinite state of mourning for someone who has to live with everything that's put on top of them, but holding steady as an example of safety. And this is not an anti-John Carpenter approach or a better iteration, but an attempt to take the silence away from the original and add this vulnerability that comes with the loudness of trauma that every character had to endure in this film. Rob Zombie's remake seems emblematic of the chaos that John Carpenter chose to steer away from. In Halloween 1978, Michael felt like a wind of evil, but the remake feels like a chaotic monster that doesn't rely on darkness to hide. What I understand from the approach of Rob Zombie was an attempt at balancing the fundamentals of a killer that was written into creation 3 decades prior, but it comes off as gritty, and in comparison to the original, which was highly atmospheric, there was so much tension built from the work of John Carpenter through the music he composed. It included this reality that Michael, while sure was harboring some sort of evil, but it made us aware of the nurture element having such a big effect that we had never really seen before or be present in the older films, and that's accurately what stands itself apart from the character we once knew. The impressions of any remake come with respect for its inspiration, class in how it regards the tools that were set up through how it was once made. Rob Zombie throws almost everything he had known or we had known about Michael Myers out the window and begins on this personal journey of re-exploring what makes this character tick as a person and also as some killer. Which leads us to the final part of this comparison, which would be Michael Myers. Nick Castle portrayed Michael Myers standing at 5 feet 10 inches, in comparison to Tyler Mane, who stood at 6 foot 7 inches. There's no denying that both actors gave different portrayals to the one character. Nick Castle was menacing, he was slender, hidden in the background, as opposed to what we see of Tyler, who was very powerful, highly eruptive, and just fierce in some sort of really refreshing way. In terms of portraying the character, Nick's notion was, I'm gonna stick on set as long as you need me down here. Okay, John Carpenter said, put this on, and that's how he got the role. He was then chosen to play Michael Myers. Tyler Mane was cast by Zombie, and it was nothing short of being the perfect tone in how different Michael was supposed to be compared to the older versions. Rob Zombie's vision was always contrasting, it was always offensive, it was always uncomfortable, but it wasn't in awe of the inspiration, it was entirely different in how it approached it, and I feel like that was for a really good reason. The reinvention of Michael Myers couldn't feel like a joke. It's why Michael Myers wasn't scary. Michael was no longer deadly as wind to cold skin, but power to experience. It's not what happens in the fairy tale Halloween stories, but it's a harsh reality of aggression in modern day society. The beginning of Halloween, violence from a domestic standpoint, well, that's relatable. Unfortunately, it's an aspect some of us attach ourselves to from our childhood memories. But there was never a wrong approach for any of these characters, but the difference comes off as heartbreaking because it went against the material. It was meant to be bold, it was meant to be different, it was meant to make you fearful of a different side of this evil. Obviously, both directors had their own rights to owning. Nick Castle is the only person besides James Jude Courtney who I have a signed poster for. I'll always have love for his portrayal of Michael Myers and the way it felt like fate brought that character to him, which was a perfect role for him. But I'm never going to let myself shoot down an opportunity to support or appreciate the other roles of other actors in the other Halloween films, because the Halloween universe is massive, and the truth be told, there is room for everybody.